Hi, it's Mitchell, and welcome to the very first episode of the MIllennial podcast. I decided to go ahead and try to take Xiaomi news, condense it into one video that I'll post here every week. In podcast form, I will try to make it available for you on other streaming audio-only platforms, but I thought that there's no other Xiaomi podcast, so might as well be the first podcast to cover Xiaomi products. First up on the news docket for today, we have the Xiaomi Mi 9 that was released. I'm not going to go over the specs too heavily. Snapdragon 855, 6, 8, or 12 gigabytes of RAM, I believe, among the varying different models, starting at 64 gigabytes. It's going to have a Samsung Super AMOLED display, in-display fingerprint scanner. It's going to have full HD brightness. They are going to include a dedicated AI assistant button, but from what I've seen online, it looks like this dedicated AI assistant button will be for the Google Assistant and will be semi-remappable. I like seeing this, and I think that Xiaomi giving the custom AI button when their MIUI doesn't really have a way to go ahead and activate the assistant quickly is a great option, especially for the international market that might not be used to using Xiaomi devices or MIUI. So giving a shortcut to the Google Assistant, in my opinion, is a great move on theirs. It's going to have a 3,300 milliamp hour battery, which I think is not big enough to be completely forward. 3,300 milliamp hours, even though we are going to have a Snapdragon 855, which is going to be a much more or a tangibly more power efficient chip than what we have with the 845. Plus the AMOLED display, I'm hoping for 6.5 hours of screen on time. Right now, the Mi Mix 3 with the 3,200 milliamp hour battery is getting about 5.5 hours. So we're looking at power efficiency savings plus a slightly larger battery. Next up, we have a triple rear camera. What you need to know is that's going to have a 48 megapixel main camera. Now, the 48 megapixels is not default pixel bin. You will be able to shoot the full 48 megapixels during direct sunlight. So I'm not sure if it's stacking exposures or how they're doing that. If it is the same pixel bin sensor that is in the Redmi Note 7. It's also going to have a f2.2 telephoto lens with a 2x optical zoom, and it's also going to have an ultra-wide lens, which is awesome. It's definitely following in the footsteps of Huawei, but it's going to be at a significantly lower price. Excuse me. Along with that, we're going to have a flash that's actually mounted underneath the rear glass. It's not going to have its own dedicated cutout, which aesthetically is going to look pretty cool. We are going to have a 27-watt fast charger for the wired charging, and then Xiaomi is going to have the world's fastest wireless charger, and it's something that they're announcing. Now, just because it's a 20-watt fast wireless charger, it doesn't mean that it's going to be faster than Quick Charge 3.0, which is a wired connection. But seeing that they are making advancements, at least in the wireless charging, is cool to see. We are also going to have a Xiaomi Mi 8 SE, which is going to have the Snapdragon 712 chip, a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, and most of, if not all of the cameras that it's going to have a 48 megapixel camera on the rear and it's going to have a 8 megapixel and then a 13 megapixel camera for the other units on the Mi 8 SE. And we are looking at the same 20 megapixel front selfie camera. And I believe the cameras on the Mi 8 and the Mi 8 SE are actually going to be the same camera units that we see on the Pocophone F1, because they're both the 20 megapixel units. So I think that it's pretty interesting that they gave the Pocophone F1 what seems like their best front-facing camera. Next, to talk about between the Mi 8 and Mi 8 SE, the Mi 8 SE is going to have a 3070 milliamp hour battery. So it's going to be a slightly smaller battery, but with the smaller screen, the AMOLED display, and I'm not sure if the SE is going to be AMOLED, but with the overall size and the more power efficient chip, we're probably going to see pretty comparable screen on time between the Mi 8 SE and the Mi 8 normal. My thoughts, opinions, reactions to this. It's pretty clear, at least to me, that Xiaomi is trying to aim at the Huawei audience, or that they're trying to make their new Mi 9 like more of a halo device, because it's also going to come with a not a substantial price increase, but it's going to come with a price increase, and it seems like they are definitely trying to give users more features, like with the in-display fingerprint scanner and stuff like that. Now, the thing that makes the Huawei Mate 20 and the Mate series of phones really excellent is they offer great performance and great cameras and great build quality, but they also offer outstanding battery life, some of the best battery life in the industry. And so they're really making a no compromise phone that is a flagship over at Huawei. And I think that the Mate 20 and the Mate 20 Pro and the P20 Pro are kind of setting the bar in regards to giving you all of those features that kind of tick the boxes on top of outstanding battery life at 4,200 milliamp hours. I think Huawei is right now making the most premium phone on the market in regards to just overall no compromises. I think the Mi 8 SE is going to be a great option for people that want a smaller phone, and I don't see that there's going to be a huge difference in performance between the 855 and the 712 as it was the difference in performance between the 845 and the Snapdragon 710 wasn't that big. So if you include software optimizations, we're looking at a pretty comparable user experience. So it's nice to see that Xiaomi is, while they are giving users a cheaper phone that does have slightly lower specs, the Snapdragon 712 is going to be a better solution for power efficiency instead of the 845 or 855. I'm sorry. Next up on the list is Xiaomi's new smartwatch. Xiaomi recently announced that they will be crowdfunding a new smartwatch, and this smartwatch is going to feature GPS. And so I know that Xiaomi has a variety of smartwatches right now that are all pretty nice products. And if you want me to review one of their smartwatches, let me know in the comment section down below. I've already reviewed my Mi Band 3 a lot, and I love it. But they are going to be financing this new smartwatch through their crowdfunding program. And what this signals to me, at least, is that Xiaomi is trying to create an ecosystem of substantially more premium products because they're entering into Western markets where a $600 smartphone is still considered a pretty good value, and $150 for a pair of headphones is normal. I think that Xiaomi is going to be launching this smartwatch and their Mi 9 and their AirPod or their AirDots Pro. I think that they're kind of gearing up for a Western-centric launch with a premium suite of products at kind of a mid-tier price point. I got a feeling that this is going to be a more fitness-oriented smartwatch, so it'd be really interesting to see if Xiaomi can interrupt the Garmin, stranglehold over the smartwatch industry with like the Garmin Fenix, I believe, which is one of the more preferred smartwatches by athletes. And because Xiaomi's such a big company, them using their crowdfunding platform for this is not that big of a deal. Next, and this is something that I really think I need to talk a little bit more about and is maybe even more important than the Mi 9 announcement. Back a couple videos ago, I talked about the Xiaomi Redmi brand. And I talked about the roadmap that I think that we should see from Xiaomi, Redmi, Poco in regards to their product offering. And teabag. And on top of that, by Xiaomi launching the Poco brand and also giving the Redmi brand a Snapdragon 855 device, which is what was announced today, that there would be a Snapdragon 855 Redmi device, is just, I think it's kind of ridiculous. I don't see why you would have the Poco brand, which is your budget-oriented flagship killing device company. I don't see why you would have the Poco brand and a Redmi brand that is also offering premium phones. To me, at least, I think that this really dilutes the Poco brand considerably because the Poco brand's niche was a top-tier Snapdragon processor, full HD screen, decent cameras, all at a really, really, really competitive, earth-shattering price. And I don't know how Xiaomi is going to allow Redmi to differentiate itself from Poco, right? Because the Mi 9 and the Mi Mix 3S will have the Snapdragon 855. So if you're a Xiaomi fan and you want to get a device with a Snapdragon 855, you're going to have a Redmi device, you're going to have a Poco device, and then you're going to have at least two more Xiaomi branded devices. So you're going to have a total of 4 different products to buy. Now, at least in a vacuum, giving people more options isn't a bad thing, but diluting your own brand and creating competition within your brand, I don't understand it. And I would love to know if you guys think Redmi should launch a Snapdragon 855 device, because at least personally, I don't. And I think it's going to do a lot to hurt the Xiaomi or at least the Redmi brand. And while I understand that Xiaomi is trying to infiltrate more markets, I really think that a more developed product lineup with less products in it would be the better move to go, because having so many different products confuses the confuses the buyer. And on top of that, if I'm trying to compare phones with the best bang for the buck and they all have the same Snapdragon 855, how is Xiaomi going to kind of create a demand for the higher end device? At least for most people, the plastic build of the Poco F1 is more than adequate. So if all I care about is the processor, then I'm going to get the Poco device, I'm assuming. And if the Poco device has a slightly worse screen, how is Xiaomi going to convince users that going from a Snapdragon 855 with a LCD display to a Snapdragon 855 with Super AMOLED display and slightly better camera, is that going to be enough to justify the $100 price hike? Because to someone like me, and I feel like most people, especially in the Indian market, I think that we're all just going to stick with whatever the least expensive Snapdragon 855 phone is, which I don't get. The other thing that kind of struck me as odd talking about Snapdragon 855s is, why would Xiaomi release the Mi Mix 3? Why would that be released with a Snapdragon 845 when the Snapdragon 855 device that they're coming out with is essentially announced a month and a half or 2 months later? So it kind of kills the demand for the Mi Mix 3S, at least in my opinion. Or it's Xiaomi's way of getting rid of excess Snapdragon 845s at a discounted price with the Mi Mix 3. I don't know. I would like to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Also, in regards to kind of news for my channel, I have decided not to publish a full-length review on the AirDots Pro, and I'm going to be doing comparison videos, but I'm going to do a whole separate video regarding why I'm not going to do the full review of the AirDots Pro yet. And kind of the short end of the story is that after plugging in the smart case into my computer, it didn't just charge. It was telling me that it was recognizing a USB device, and it was trying to mount it. So to me, I think that there could be updates to the Mi AirDots Pro, either software updates that come via plugging it into the computer or Bluetooth OTA updates. So to go ahead and judge them and give them like a final verdict on their current firmware, I don't know if that's necessarily fair. But I will have reviews and I will have comparison videos, more importantly, coming up, especially between the Mi AirDots and the Mi AirDots Pro. That is going to wrap up today's podcast. If you guys like the idea of a Xiaomi podcast on this channel, it's going to be me kind of here in front of the computer. I'll try to get some guests, and we're just going to be recapping Xiaomi news probably once a week, talking about stuff that comes up. And I'm going to do my best to get this on a podcast platform. And I think we're going to call it the MIllennial podcast. Obviously, Mitchell Millennial is the channel name, and Xiaomi Mi brand. I know, it's great. I'd like to thank everyone that was an awkward pause. I'd like to thank everyone that supports this channel and uses my affiliate links down below. And until next time, guys, if you are listening to me, let me know where you're listening to me on. If you're watching this podcast and you have feelings about the Xiaomi Mi 9 and Mi 9 SE, let me know what they are in the comment section down below. Also, are you excited to have a Xiaomi podcast where we cover Xiaomi news every week? I want your feedback. Okay, and until next time, guys, we're going to call this podcast a wrap. It's been Mitchell, signing off.